Okay, hello everyone. My name is Laquan Williams, and in this video topic for today, I wanted to do a review of the second episode of the season 4 Black Lightning episode, which is the last season. It aired last night. It aired on Monday. Today's Wednesday. It aired on Monday, but season 3, the season 4 is the final season. Unfortunately, the fourth and final. The show was not renewed for a fifth one. Back. I would say behind the scenes and backdoor, I guess, conversations have led me and lots of people to believe that it looks like there were creative issues that probably was the case for this not going on. But as I mentioned in my previous videos, Khalil, who plays Painkiller on the show, will have his backdoor pilot slash solo season spin-off show that's going to be coming out this year, before this year's over. And the 7th episode of this fourth and final season is going to be the introduction to his episode, the backdoor pilot to the Painkiller show. And I saw an article yesterday on comicbook.com that the characters Thunder and Lightning and other Black Lightning characters will appear on the show, of course, to bring more. I would say to bring more light to the show, and hopefully to keep it around for at least a couple seasons. At least, I don't know if this show can get 2 or 3, but hopefully it can, and I'm hoping it gets picked up and not canceled at the last minute, like a lot of other CW shows that I mentioned before, such as the Green Arrow and the Canary show. It was supposed to be green lit, but then CW decided that they were going to go through with it. So before I talk about what happens in the 3rd episode of Black Lightning, the 4th season, which is going to happen next week, I wanted to discuss the Monday's episode, which was the 2nd episode of this 4th and final season. So basically, continuing off where last week happened, where we saw the Cobra Cartel and also the 100 gang attacking each other. And they do in this episode as well. There's a shootout in the streets that they have. There's actually a couple of shootouts. There's a surprise, a sneak attack shootout that happens where the 100 gang sneaks into the Cobra Cartel's basically their lair or their base of operations and shoot at them, and they kill a couple of them. But for the most part, the main person who was the the right hand of Lady Eve, I believe her name is Destiny, she shot all the guys and killed all of them except one of them that got away, which was the driver. Lala, who is in charge of the 100 gang, now that Tobias Whale is no longer in charge of it, because he is still obviously one of the main bad guys in the story, but and obviously the main protagonist slash villain to Black Lightning, who is right here, Jefferson Pierce, because he killed his father, and he witnessed him kill him when he was only like about 8-9 years old. Obviously, it's going to end with obviously them fighting each other again, but this is obviously for the final time, since this is last season, and Black Lightning obviously having to take out Tobias Whale for good, or leave him crippled, so obviously he'll never be able to hurt anybody again. But we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, more or less it was the gangs infighting, as well as well, not infighting, the gangs fighting each other, but there was obviously infighting with the Black Lightnings, the Pierce family again, with arguments back and forth of what was supposed to be done with Black Lightning helping his kids out while they're out fighting Thunder and Lightning, his 2 daughters. But him and his wife argued that and he still stated that he's not ready to go back to put his suit on to be Black Lightning again, and he saying that he didn't want to do that, even though he's been obviously using his powers and attacking people without it, and obviously it's been a bad decision for him. Gambi explained to him that he still needs to put his suit on because he's hurting his central nervous system and his body, and while he's using his powers without the suit, especially to a high degree, if he's using a lot of electricity and power from the currents, obviously of his obviously his meta powers. But we saw that more or less. We also don't know if Lady Eve is still alive, because at the end of the last season, which is season 3, Jill Scott, who is a singer and actress, she plays Lady Eve on the show. She's another bad guy, obviously villain, bad guy. She uses black magic and voodoo to bring people back from the dead. She also was believed to be dead herself, but she was brought back. We'll see what happened, because they use that on the show with metahuman powers and voodoo, black magic, stuff like that. with people being brought back from the dead, obviously, in some specific ways, and obviously the science that they use as well. So we'll see what happens with that. She was shot a couple of times at the end of the last season. It's the last episode of the season 13 finale. Excuse me, the season 3 finale. She was shot a couple of times. It looked like she was about to die, but we never saw any of her actually die. So she could still come back in some type of capacity. Hopefully, if she actually is alive, we'll see. Because right now, they did say she was dead. So we'll see what happens with that. Gamby, more or less, who is the main ally to Jefferson Pierce, who is Black Lightning, and his family, who obviously raised him. And after he was found out that he had powers, after obviously his dad died when he was around 9-10 years old. Kind of like how Blade and Whistler happened. He found him on the streets and whatnot, and he obviously took him in and showed him out, obviously trained him to become who he is, obviously. It's similar to that, because they both have experience. So yes, Black Lightning and Gamby's relationship is obviously very similar to Whistler and Blade's as well, as far as that father figure that they didn't have after their father obviously died, or they never met them in Blade's case, obviously. But and his mother died while she gave birth to him. But that's Blade out. With the Black Lightning, Gamby, his former friend that he knew in the CIA, at the ASA, who thought he could work at the CIA, he's getting closer to her, even though he likes her, but to a certain degree. He's also using his friendship to get close to her, to use his position that she gave him as the head IT person in operations security at her firm. She is helping the police use the resources of her security firm to make dampening energy guns, DEG guns, to hurt the metahumans, such as obviously Black Lightning and everybody else. And he's using his Gamby is using his friendship to get close to this lady, because she wanted him to work with him. But work for her, but he said no in last week. But this week he agreed and said yes. After he said no. He agreed. He agreed to do it after he said no in this second episode, after he broke into their base of operations and went into a couple of their server rooms, and he looked to see what they had on there, and it looks like he installed some type of USB flash server thumb drives on their servers to piggyback off of what they're doing, to see obviously into their base of operations and to look into the guns that they're making for the police to use to hurt and kill metahumans. Like I said, they're dampening energy guns. So one of them was used sort of last week as a prototype that was used to shoot and hit Jefferson Pierce, aka Black Lightning's younger daughter, Lightning. She got shot and she was hurt. She did regenerate after a while, but she did end up falling down while she was flying in the first episode. But it looks like nothing happened with that. Nobody came to save her, so it looks like she just recovered and was flying back to her normal self. Because at the end of the first episode last week, we saw her falling out of the sky, and in the second episode, it's like I looked at it and it's like it didn't happen. If you watch the whole thing, she did not. The second episode did not resume with her falling again, and obviously Black Lightning, her father, having to save her because he's the only one who could fly besides her and the family. There's other metahumans that could fly, obviously, but besides those two, and obviously they're the only people. They're the only ones that know each other. Obviously, there's other allies, and there'll be other metahumans that come into the story as well, but we'll see what happens with that. Gravedigger, who was played by Wayne Brady from last season, he's the main villain that came out last season. He will be back. We still haven't seen that yet, but obviously this show's not over yet. There's 13 episodes, and this is the last season. It was believed that he was died, but obviously it turns out that he was not. At the end of the last season, season 3, you saw, if you watched the episode, obviously that. And what we also see in this episode for this week, the second episode of the fourth season, is that Lynn, who plays the wife and mother of Black Lightning's kids, obviously, she's using more and more metagene powers to go out and fight and the obviously bad guys at night and not broad daylight. And it looks like she's obviously more and more consumed with this. And she did get hurt, obviously. This past week, she got a bruise on her arm and her shoulder. She got shot at, but she didn't end up taking a bullet to the arm. But she did get hurt a little bit. But she's still going out and fighting, even though she's not obviously a metahuman like Black Lightning, her husband, and her two daughters are. So that's what we saw. And we also saw that the police chief, the new police chief on the show, is making it known that the metahumans and the bad guys, obviously, who are the 100 gang and the Cobra Cartel, don't run the city. They do. They're the ones in charge. And how they have to stick together, and with her getting these new guns in place, it's basically going to be a problem for the metahumans, obviously, because if we've seen Lala and his gang, the 100, get their hands on a prototype by somehow illegally last week and using it on Lightning, which is obviously Black Lightning's younger daughter, and hurting her, it's going to be obviously an issue with that. And like I said, the gangs had a shootout in the street, and that led to an innocent kid getting shot in the chest. He was about 12, 13 years old. His dad is he died. His dad is a teacher at the Garfield High, which obviously Black Lightning, who was the principal, Jefferson Pierce works at. He told him he has to quit. He can't be a teacher anymore. Obviously, he doesn't know what he can do with the rest of his life now, because the rest of his kids were taken by Child Protective Services, since they believed that he was deemed unworthy to be a parent and a trustworthy father, because he got his because they were homeless and they were in a car. Now, because things were bad for him, and obviously one of his kids got shot and killed, but it wasn't his fault, obviously. And even though he blamed himself, Jefferson Pierce, who was obviously also Black Lightning, told him that it wasn't his fault, and he can't blame himself for that. The kid that did shoot and kill his son, actually the guy who looks like he was like 19, 20, 21, the latest, Black Lightning found out who he was after he asked TC, who is a metahuman who can who has like a computer brain. He can jack into and hack into computers by using his brain, obviously, and his mind's like a calculator. He can get into the internet. He can listen to phones. He actually can hear phones and computers as they talk. Like he can listen and read their machine language and their code. So he told him where to find the guy, since Gamby told Black Lightning he wasn't going to give him the address, because he told him, you're going to go out again and you're going to not use your suit, you're going to use your powers, and you're risking the chance of getting caught again and me having to obviously save you again. And that's what happened. He ended up finding him. He beat the guy up in his house and told him that you better go, you better turn yourself into the police, or I'm going to come back. I'm going to beat you up again, and then I'll hand you over to the police, basically, is what was stated. So that's what's happening. And then we also saw Tobias Whale and Black Lightning get into an argument and also close to a fight in the parking lot of at the Garfield High School, where he works at, as Jefferson Pierce, obviously, his public identity. He electrocuted him, but Tobias Whale told him that didn't hurt him anymore, because he's been taking a larger dose and obviously a more powerful version of the serum that keeps him alive and obviously more younger, because he's obviously very old, and it keeps him very strong as well. It increases his strength, ability, endurance, because without it, he wouldn't be able to last long and fight against Black Lightning or anybody else, because he doesn't have power like that. So that is something that it needs to be looked at for Black Lightning to discuss with Gammy, because it's a problem. Because if he shocks Tobias, he wasn't wearing his suit for one, but if he shocks Tobias and Tobias is not affected by that, he said that basically didn't affect me. That's obviously a problem. We'll see what happens with that. And that's more or less basically it. It's similar to the first episode. Black Lightning obviously is very upset and depressed. He's going to therapy to see his divorce counselor by himself and also with his wife, and explain why he's upset. But again, he didn't use his suit this week, and he's obviously dealing with the pain and the suffering still, with him feeling guilty of losing Detective Henderson. Obviously at the end of the last season, and he feels guilty about it. So he still feels that it's not necessary to put his suit on, because he thinks that the city doesn't need him anymore, and that he wants to quit again as being Black Lightning. So for the next week's episode, season 4, episode 3, the Book of Reconstruction, chapter 3 is going to be the title of it. We're going to get a preview of it. So the plot and the details is, um, basically in this episode, Jefferson Pierce still has a lot to deal with. This is the plot and preview of it. Jefferson still has a lot to deal with in order to return back to doing what he was doing before. The therapy session will not help out the character. He will be even more confused than before. Will he be able to break through all of these difficult life phases? Jefferson will surely find a conclusion to all the chaos. The official episode synopsis reads, Jefferson is feeling even more lost after a frustrating therapy session. On the other side, Anessa continues to care for a still comatose Grace. Anessa is his oldest daughter, and she plays Thunder. Grace is her girlfriend, and she's also a metahuman. She's a shapeshifter, and she's in a coma still after she knocked her out last season. After she was brainwashed and put under mind control by Gravedigger, who is the bad guy played by Wayne Brady, who was introduced in last season, the third season of Black Lightning, in season 3. Towards the halfway through the end of it, he was introduced as the second main villain, besides obviously the ASA. Okay, so we're continuing. It says by the end, Lynn has a breakthrough. So I don't know if that's dealing with her therapy sessions or obviously her having a breakthrough with her metagene serum / drugs that she's been taking to use Gravedigger's powers and other metahuman powers that she's been using that she helped. Obviously, because she's a doctor and she knows how to deal with all this stuff, gene splicing and metahumans and whatnot. She knows how to deal with all this because she helped the metahumans with the ASA harness their powers and obviously get well after they were brought out of the coma that they were in for so long. Because they were all in comas for years. The ASA froze them in comas, froze them in and put them in big, huge, hyperbolic time chambers, you can say, or just pods. Pod kids. They put in pods. And they were all in them, and once they got out, obviously some kids died, and some moved on to just be left alone, and some of them did, want to be with their families, but it was a lot of I would say different. It was a lot different than obviously you would expect, but that's more or less what's going on. So it says here on TVSeasonSpoilers.com that episode 3 will be an emotional ride for the characters and fans altogether. The season has been the same from the start. The darkest nights will arrive in the third episode. Will the viewers see the night of progression of the story? Sun will surely rise after the dark night. Jefferson is to be there for the world. At the same time, he also needs to think about his family. Who will he choose? He is standing in a very dicey situation. Choosing one thing will make him lose the other. Let us wait for the further episodes to see what happens ahead. So that's basically what happened. Grace is right here, and this is his older daughter, Anessa, who plays Thunder. So we'll see about that. More or less of what's going to happen with that in Black Lightning. So it'll be very interesting to see if he puts his suit on for the first time next week, but we'll see what happens. It's been fun. It's just obviously more darker and moody season than the last current one, but it's unfortunate. Obviously, Detective Henderson had to die, but we'll see what happens with that. And in the end, it's still fun. I'm just waiting to see what's going to happen with the painkiller situation with Cleo and his backdoor episode pilot. Will he be obviously also included in joining Black Lightning and his family and the rest of the metahumans in the fight to obviously save Freeland from not just obviously Gravedigger but Tobias? And I don't believe they're going to work together. I believe they're going to it'll be probably we're going to work together in the beginning and then towards the middle. In the end, it's going to be a big problem because two bad guys who both want everything are going to clash heads and collide. So they're obviously going to fight, obviously, and we'll see what happens with that. Who takes who out, and then obviously whoever remains will have to be the one that obviously Black Lightning and his family and the rest of the metahumans obviously have to face up against, and the police obviously, because Gravedigger is very powerful. I doubt those new dampening energy guns that the police are going to use are going to work on him that well because he's very powerful and he can use different powers from other metahumans, other people. So we'll see with that. Gravedigger is played by Wayne Brady. Like I said, he's a bad guy. who was just introduced on season 3, which is the last current season of Black Lightning, the last season of Black Lightning on the previous one. We'll see with that. Like I said, the 100 gang and the Cobra Cartel are going up against each other, so we'll see what happens with that. That continued gang fight that's taking place on the streets and shootouts, obviously, at night. There was one in broad daylight, but there'll probably be some continuing on with the rest of the season. So that's all I have to say and state in regards to this topic of Black Lightning's season 4, for the final season, episode 2 review that just happened on Monday. It aired a couple days ago. We'll see what happens with that. And this was also a preview of the 3rd episode that's going to happen next week. We'll see what happens. It's unfortunate, like I said, the show is not being renewed for another season. We'll see what happens with the Painkiller storyline / backdoor pilot episode that's supposed to introduce the spinoff for his solo show that's supposed to happen towards the end of this year. That episode will be in episode 7. So we'll see if Khalil is going to be back in that episode and out before then, hopefully. I don't know, but if he should probably be in 2 to 3 episodes this season. Like I said, episode 7 is going to be his solo one, so he'll probably be in that one and probably the last 2 episodes of the season, and possibly season 6. Before that, he'll probably come at the end. I don't know, we'll see, because obviously episode 6 he might come at the end, so that in episode 7 you can obviously see him, and you'll be reintroduced to him, and you'll obviously see his solo journey by himself without the other characters. We'll see what happens with that, but that's all I have to say in regards to Black Lightning. If you've watched the show, if you haven't watched the show, let me know what you think in your comments, and what do you think about this being the last season. Obviously, how do you feel about any other upcoming shows that are happening? The CW brand new show, this also is on the CW network, Black Lightning. The DC show on the CW that's going to be coming out next week is going to be Superman and Lois. I will talk about that and do a review on that for the first episode when it happens. This is the first season 2. It's going to happen next week on the 23rd. I will talk about that and review that episode when it happens and takes place on the 23rd. It's supposed to be like an hour and a half, so we'll see what happens with that. So that's all I have to say. Thank you again for watching, and bye.